There's a tool out there that lets you build web apps and internal tools that leverage your ClickUp data. And in today's video, you're going to understand exactly how to do so. I've already introduced this tool and it's called Softr. In the previous video, I've built an external simple job board. It was using a single list and it was pretty simple. People could search for jobs and they could apply for their jobs and you would be able to see that data popping up back in ClickUp. If you haven't watched that video yet, I suggest you to start there because I explained the basics of Softr and how to get started with the tool. And in today's video, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and show you the kind of apps we can build for you at Upsys thanks to ClickUp and the Softr integration. But if you have seen that video and you want a quick reminder of what we've already built in our HR portal, I'm going to give you a quick tour of the job board and how you can apply for a new job. Here we have a page that says welcome to agencies. And we are able to look up our jobs and say we want to apply for jobs in operations. We can look up that jobs and open that page up, and that would give us the job details. And then we can just fill up that information and put our phone number, our name, and stuff like that. And that data would be sent back to ClickUp. This job board is actually leveraging a list in ClickUp, which is our positions list right here. And every job that is added here from the HR team, for example, and put in the online status, it would pop up in our job board so that anyone that has the link to our job board can just go there and look up the job and apply for it. And when it comes to applicants, they actually pop up in the talents list. But what if we want to go further and we already have employees in our team and we want to create an internal part of our HR portal where employees can just look up who's working at the company with an employee directory and request time off or expenses. We can do all of that in Softr using the users integration and user groups to maybe filter out and only let managers request for expenses and any employee request for time off, and create very advanced rules when it comes to building internal portals. Obviously, you might think, why shouldn't I just do that with ClickUp Forms? But what if you want to offer a better user experience to your employees, or you simply have employees that are not in ClickUp and are still part of your team, and you want to let your HR team work from an operational perspective in ClickUp, and the rest of your team, whether they're part of ClickUp or not, just have a better user experience? Well, that is all possible with Softr, as it's bridging that gap between a nice user interface and ClickUp as a backend. And I'm going to show you all of that in today's HR portal integration with ClickUp and Softr. So let's get started. And I'm actually using an existing template here. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. And here, if we go to that directory, it actually looks like a template that Softr offers by default. If we go to the homepage dashboard, we can actually go to start with the template and look up HR, and it will show up an employee directory, which I've used. And this is basically going to serve as a base for me. The first thing we need to do is we want to make sure that our employees have access to that internal portal part, and we remove all those default dummy employees offered by the template. Let's go into users and start with that. We're going to go into the users tab, and here we're going to sync our ClickUp employees from the employee directory list in here. And let's start by showing you how it looks. We have our employee popped up right here. They're in the list as tasks. They have a name, they have an image, they have an email, they have some start date, maybe start date and when they started working in the company, a department, maybe a one-liner that describes them, and title and a level. They're managers or they're just part of the team. We have prepared all of that info in there. And on top of that, we have prepared two more lists that we're going to use for our Softr app. One where our employees can request for time off, so they can put their time off and maybe the reason of their time off in a field. And we can link that up to the actual employee from the employee directory. And another list, which is the expense list, where employees can request new expenses and say, okay, I'm purchasing a laptop or a phone and it's for this amount and I want it by then. We're going to link all that data up with Softr. And let's start with the employee directory. Back to Softr, I'm going to click sync with data source in the users and pick the ClickUp as a data source, and then my workspace and my people demo space, and I'm going to pick my employee directory list. We can bring all the users, meaning all the tasks in that list, or you can filter out the data you want. You could filter it out through a custom field or status and just bring in maybe users that are in an employee status, because maybe you have others that are like pending employees or onboarded or offboarded. It doesn't matter, you can filter out your data, but we're gonna keep it simple and just bring everyone. And then let's map out our fields. We're gonna say the Softr email is actually the email custom field in ClickUp. Back here, it's this email, John, Lisa, David. They're all gonna have their email brought back to Softr. And then when it comes to the name, it's the user's name. And then let's say their avatar is the image custom field that we have here. Back to Softr, I'm gonna look up for image and let's click save and sync. Obviously, I've prepared all of this data before, and you have to make sure that you have a list that lists your users so that those can dynamically be added as users in Softr. They're all gonna be invited, and that means that they can log in and have access to our portal. As a reminder, the first part we did in the previous video, it's public, but that part, it'll be private and it'll be actually synced with that list that we have in ClickUp, so that each time you have a new employee onboarded in ClickUp, it'll be added as a Softr user, and you're gonna see them in the employee directory that we're gonna build right now. Before we get to that employee directory, I wanna create some groups. We have the user groups manager and employees here, and we wanna make sure that this is mapped with our custom field in ClickUp, which is the level field, whether they're manager or team. I'm gonna get here, and we already have that prepared by the template. I'm just gonna map out the information with ClickUp. I'm gonna say it's condition-based, and employees are actually part of the level employee team, let's say, okay, and click save. Then managers are actually part of the level custom field manager. And then let's click save again. Okay, we do have those set up. Now we have our user groups, and I'm gonna show you why we need those later, because this can determine access to certain pages. And we want managers to be able to submit their expenses, but regular employees, maybe they don't need to do that. We're gonna filter out that info later. Let's get to pages and then to the homepage, which hosts our employee directory. And as you can see, there's a bunch of dummy data here. So we're gonna link up this with our actual ClickUp employees available in this list. Their image is gonna be the image in Softr, the email, their start date, and everything is gonna be brought back to Softr. Let's get here. And then here I'm gonna pick my data source. We're gonna link ClickUp, link our workspace, and then link our space and pick our employee directory. As you can see, the data is ready pretty much, but we need to map it out because the dummy data wasn't mapped out exactly like ClickUp is. We want the image to be as the image. We want the team to be there. We want their name to be actually the bigger title and everything. To do so, we're gonna get to content and then update each item fields. The image is gonna become our image in ClickUp. The tag here is gonna be maybe our department tag, which is actually available here, just FYI. And here we're gonna have as the title their employee name, and let's put their title as the employee title. Okay, we don't have to put a label, and maybe you can put the title a little bit bigger. To do so, we're just gonna go to the paintbrush, go to text, and make it look a little larger, and put it as maybe bold. Okay, so we have styled and we have prepared our employee directory, and we're good for that part. What if we want to test that out? Let's click preview, and here we get our employee directory, and we can search for employees. If I want to search only for people in tech, I can just type in tech. It will filter out the right people. And if I want to only see Lisa, I can just look up Lisa and she'll be right there. Now, obviously we have only 7 employees now, so the search bar doesn't make a lot of sense. But as you start to have more and more employees, maybe you want that to pop up. Let's open one of these employees. And as you can see, it's telling you it cannot find any data. Records details can no longer be found. So here's the thing. We need to make sure that the page that we have already prepared, that is the employee detail page, is same thing mapped out with ClickUp. Here we have dummy employee info, and we need to link up that info with the employee. We're gonna go into source, pick the same list, and go into people and pick our employee directory. And same principle, we're gonna map out our data. Let's put as the image of the employee, same thing, their image, and maybe I want to have their name in here. And as description, I want to have the one-liner and maybe add the employee title on top. Let's bring that there. And let's make the title a little bit bolder. I'll put it as bold and large. Here we go. And then I'm going to remove a section and keep it simple and put maybe the start date as a field. That could be interesting info. I could put the department they're part of and the email. Let's put the email there. And let's put the department they're part of here. And I think we're good. It's very basic, but all those fields are mapped out with ClickUp. The one-liner here is the actual one-liner of Michelle that we have here. If we open that up, we can see that she's filled that, so it's right there. Her title is here, and that title is actually available here. Let's add their description maybe here right below, and we have their email, their department, and we're good. So that page is ready. Let's get back here and refresh this, and this should now work, which means we're gonna see the info of the person, John Smith, start date, etc. Now, see there's an edit button here. It's a button that lets you edit your info. But what if we didn't want Daniel, which we're logged in as in our preview, to edit the info of someone else? But what if we would want everyone to be able to edit their own info? Well, that is possible with Softr. We can create a filter that would let the person that is logged in edit their own profile and see other people's profile, but not be able to edit them. So let's get back to Softr and tweak that out. We're gonna go into actions. Here we have an edit button. So we're gonna rename it to edit my profile. Then in the edit record, we're only gonna let them edit a few things. So maybe they can change their one-liner and their description. Let's leave only those. I'm gonna look up for one-liner and description. That way, they will not be able to edit their start date, their department, or their job title because that's determined by HR. They can edit a few things, a few info about themselves, but not everything. So we're gonna filter that out here. And then what we're gonna say is in the visibility of the button, we only want specific records to be able to see that button. And we want the user for which the name in ClickUp is equal to the name in Softr. That rule will only let a user logged in as themselves edit themselves as a record in ClickUp. If I refresh that out in the preview, that means Daniel will not be able to edit John. However, if we get back there and I'm logged in as Daniel and I open up Daniel, I can edit myself out. And if I edit my profile, I can edit the one-liner and the description. And I love pancakes. If it's added to the description, let's update it. And that record with the I love pancakes for Daniel, if we get to ClickUp, should be updated. Here we go, I love pancakes, awesome. Congratulations, you've created a fully ready employee directory available as an app. And this is typically the kind of thing we can do for you at Upsys. We're a ClickUp verified agency and we help businesses set up ClickUp and integrate it with other tools like AI agents, external automations with Make, or user interfaces with Softr. If you're interested about building web apps with our help, you can book a discovery call with us. You can go through your need and build a client portal, an HR portal, a CRM, or an external web app that leverages your ClickUp data. And we can do much more than a simple employee directory, because the next part is going to be interesting. We're going to let users submit their expenses from that HR portal. I'm going to get back to Softr here and go into the pages and add the submit expenses page. This page has been pre-built. I'm just going to tweak it out and update the fields. And let's get to the form. And the first thing you want to do is link the data source. I'm going to link again my workspace, my people demo space, and link up my expenses list, which as a reminder is a list available in our ClickUp that we have prepared where people can submit their expenses. All right, so let's get back here. I'm gonna go into the questions. I always like cleaning everything out, so I'm gonna delete all our fields. I wanna keep it clean in the beginning and say, okay. Let's see what we need to fill. We need to fill the expense name. Maybe I wanna fill the expense amount, that's quite important. The category of the expense, and the due date. So when do I need this expense for? And I've synced the purchase category with the ones we have in ClickUp. Every time a user is going to submit a new expense, it's going to appear here. What if I want a user to be able to see the expense they've made? Let's get here and add a new block. This is going to be a list block, which is going to be my submitted expenses. I'm going to link up that block with that same list. We're going to get into the people demo and then link it up with our expenses list. What I'm going to say is I want to see the expenses for which the user has submitted an expense. If the employee is the logged in user's name, it's a little bit of the same principle as filtering out what I can edit in my employee directory. I'm going to add a dynamic value here. And what I need to make sure of is that when you submit an expense, we actually pass that info, which I haven't done yet. I'm going to get here and into the questions, I need to add a hidden info. It's going to be the employee, and then it's going to be a dynamic value. It's going to be the logged in user's name. So that exact same filter. What this means is when a user submits their expense, we know who it is because they're logged in into Softr. And that info is going to pop up here. It's going to be Lisa, John, or whoever. And then that info is going to serve as a filter in my list of expenses. I'm going to be able to see the expenses I've made here and search for them, but I'm not going to be able to see someone else's expenses. That's exactly how we want it to go. I was going to content here and just customize a little bit the UI of our expense lists. I'm going to hide the cover media. I'm going to put the name of the expense. That's cool. The urgency is going to be removed, and then we can add maybe the expense amount and the purchase category. And what could be interesting is to see that status of the expense as well and put it all the way as the first line. You can even color it the same way it's colored in ClickUp by going into the design settings and in the colors picking as defined in data source. That way the colors are going to be the ones from ClickUp. The last thing I want to do now that I've set up the expenses submission page is make sure only managers can submit their expenses. I'm going to go into the settings of the page, and in here into the visibility, I'm not going to only let logged in users, but every manager submit their expense and click save, which means regular employees will not be able to see this. What that means is that only managers in ClickUp determined by this field can have access to the page. If we get to Softr and view the expense page, Daniel, their manager, can see it. But what if someone else tries to log in? What if David tries to log in? David can see it because they are a manager. Let's have a look at Robert because they're just part of our team. Robert is here and the permission is denied. They cannot have access because that is determined by the manager custom field in ClickUp. As you can see, you can use ClickUp as your single source of truth for permissions in Softr. Now let's get back and see this as someone else. I'm going to use a manager, maybe Jennifer, and let's look up Jennifer. Here we go. And she sees the expenses and she can submit new ones. So we can give it a try and say, I want to travel to Dubai for business, and the amount is going to be 2,000 maximum for my department. And this is actually a travel purchase category, and I want to travel on the 31st of May. I can submit my expense, and this will be handled. Thank you for submitting this expense. Your manager will be in touch with you. Say I need a new phone. I need an iPhone, and I have a budget of, let's say, $1,000. And this is actually office supplies. Oh, let's say it's equipment. Doesn't matter. And I need it by the end of the week. Let's click Submit Expense. Say we're HR and we're in here and we look up those expenses. So they pop up, and as they pop up, they are linked to the right person so that we know that Jennifer has submitted this expense. And if you were to create a form to handle the same thing in ClickUp, you cannot have relationships as fields of your form. You cannot link up your employee directory with your ClickUp task. And that's why Softr is much more powerful than ClickUp when it comes to form and user interface. Now, as an HR manager, I could change the status and put this one as travel to Dubai validated. And let's say the phone is on review. What that means is that Jennifer, because she is linked up to those two expenses, if she goes to her dashboard and refreshes it, she should see those expenses popping up here. And she can see that travel to Dubai is to do, and the phone is still in to do. Takes a few seconds to refresh the data. And here we go. validated for travel to Dubai, and iPhone is in review. Each time your data is updated in ClickUp, this is updated from a user's perspective, and they can search for their expenses. Say they want to search only for their travels, they can type in travels and it'll be filtered out. The same way we did this, we could do the same thing for booking time off. And I'm going to show you how I've done it in Softr because it's pretty much the same principle as the submitting expenses page. When an employee applies for time off, what they have to do is just put the time off type, maybe it's sick leave, and then the start and the end date, let's say 20th till the 23rd, and request their time off. And if we refresh the screen, we can see the time off that they have requested. So Jennifer has requested a time off between the 20th and the 23rd. And if we get to ClickUp and time off, we can see that Jennifer has requested time for this period. And as the manager or the HR team, I can see the time off requested by everyone here in a calendar view, and that's much nicer than having it in a list. I can just decide to validate the time off, and if we reloaded the page, I could see the time off and their status. Jennifer is validated, and we're good to go. It's pretty much the same principle as submitting the expenses. I went into Softr, I created a new page, we have a simple form, and we've mapped our form in Softr with the actual data in ClickUp, which means this time of start and time of end are start date and due date. And in here, we've created a search bar and the ability to request time off from there. And if we get into the filters, there's also a filter so that an employee can see all the time off for them. If we wanted, we could create a more advanced system where managers would actually approve time off in Softr, and this would reflect in ClickUp and in the user's My Time Off kind of list. You can see your time off here, you can request time off, and that's pretty much how our HR portal is built. So we're pretty much done with our HR portal, and if we give it a preview and we get in here, we can see that we have built an employee directory. I can search for employees as an employee. So as Jennifer, for example, I can open that up and I can just edit my profile in here. We can get back here, search for people. Say I want to look up Michelle. I can just look up for Michelle and she'll be appearing here. If I go into my profile, I can actually submit expenses and I can see the expenses I've submitted and their status. And I can book time off to my manager, and manager in ClickUp can approve it. If I wanted to go further, I could make an approval system in Softr. Now, this just shows you the capabilities of having it as an internal tool and combining the internal aspect and external aspect, and having some pages public like the job board and having some other pages private. We can actually see here that we've separated them with a line just to know what's internal from what's external, and basically build any kind of app, just leveraging the ClickUp information you have. If you're interested about building a web app for your company and you're handling your HR, your logistics, or your client delivery into ClickUp, we can create portals and external and internal web apps for you at Upsys. Thank you for watching this video. If you're curious about Softr, there's some more videos about how I set up this tool in different use cases. And if you want to see something like that built for your business, book a discovery call, we'll go through your need. And until then, stay productive.